What's up, everyone, and welcome back to school. But don't worry, everything is cool. I'm your host, Jalissa, and of course, I'm here with the boys, Steve and Brandon. Say what's up, you guys.
What's up?
How y'all doing today?
Pretty good.
I'm doing pretty good. It's been rainy these past 2 days in LA, which is pretty cool. Because it's been hot as fuck for a good minute.
But isn't it still hot outside?
Yeah,
right?
It's pretty humid.
It's giving Florida. It really is.
It's giving
Or
Florida.
I don't know if anybody out there is from Florida. Let me know.
Never been.
Yeah, I've never been. But I assume it's
I thought
like
you
that.
said Mexico was like this.
Yeah, my dad yesterday was literally because it was raining too, but it was still hot. My dad was saying this is exactly what it's like in Mexico, at least from where they're from. But
I don't know.
You don't
I feel
agree?
like the one time that I was there when it was raining, it still feels like it doesn't feel cold, but it doesn't feel humid after. Or at least I don't remember.
But over there, it's because it's like a rainforest, so it's raining like hard as fuck. No,
Yeah.
yesterday it was raining like little like pathetic droplets, like little like beep, 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 beep. But it was a
He
lot.
called them pathetic.
Yeah, the water is my homie. It's all good.
Mm.
Me and water are like this, bro.
Do you guys
Real.
ever see any wild critters in Mexico? Like, do you guys see ever jaguars and stuff?
Like
Jaguars.
like Sasquatches and shit.
No,
Oh.
regular
Like-
animals like, jaguars.
like armadillos.
Yeah. Well, because aren't jaguars like they have there's like the Aztecs, they had the jaguar warrior, no?
Mhm.
I've seen like donkeys and like horses
Yeah.
and
Never-
chickens.
You never seen a jaguar?
No,
Oh.
I only see like farm animals.
Oh.
My mom says she saw a Yeti once when she woke up like really early.
They have- they-
In the like 6 a.m. she opened like a curtain and she saw this big dude like covered in white fur, and he was like doing like the Sasquatch thing, and then he just went away.
How did he get all the way in Mexico? He's vacationing, I guess.
You could argue there's a lot of mythological beasts in Mexico. They have El Cucuy and
El cucuy.
What? El Cucuy is just the boogeyman, right?
I think.
What is he
so.
supposed to look like?
I don't know.
probably like Satan.
He's a vampire. I think he's a vampire.
I remember as a kid, I thought he was like a ball of like light.
A ball of
light.
light.
Mhm.
And that was scary for you?
Yeah.
It
Like-
really was
like
because
a-
he's just a light.
Like an orb of light. I'm being serious. Yeah.
It reminds me of when I saw an orb of light that one time I woke up in the middle of the night in the middle of my street. That's a long story.
Oh,
though.
yeah, he's a boogeyman monster.
What does he look like? Like Satan?
I'm telling you, he probably looks like a goat. Satan looks like a goat.
I thought that was. Oh no, I'm tripping.
It says, oh no, that's Cuco.
Cuco,
They
the
have
singer.
La Chupacabra too.
Oh
Well,
yeah, the
that's supposed-
chupacabra is the vampire.
Yeah, but that one looks like a dog. No.
I've heard mixed interpretations of it, bro. I wouldn't
It depends on who
assume.
you
El
ask.
Yeah,
cucuy.
there's probably different breeds of them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, people are genuinely afraid of La Chupacabra.
Ooh, he looks scary.
What El Cucuy?
Yeah. He looks like a bat, low key.
You're just a
really
coward,
dark,
bro.
though.
Damn. He just looks like an old man.
I thought he was an orb of light.
It probably just came from some like old ass man in Mexico. Probably just like scared a bunch of.
So then,
young
what's
kids.
the most famous like guy down there?
La Llorona.
That one. That's the most famous one.
In Mexico?
Yeah.
I don't know. I
At
feel
least
like
in
I
your
always,
experience.
I always feel like people talk about La Llorona a lot, but I don't know.
What's
What
her-
was the other one? El cucuy or La Chupacabra?
Do you know the actual story of La
Didn't she
Llorona?
like drown her kids
Yeah.
in the river? And then she's like, "Oh my god,
Why did she drown her kids? Do you know?
It's dumb or something."
She was dumb. She
I
was
think
tweaking.
I think there's like different stories, but I think one of them is that like I think her man's like left her or something like that, or like,
She drowned the kids.
she drowned the
to get
kids.
back at him.
Yeah.
And
Damn.
now she cries because she's like, "Who drowned my kids?"
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Oh, she says that.
Yeah.
I remember one time when I was a kid.
At least that's what my cousins used to tell me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I was watching this movie that had her, but
Mhm.
it was like an old timey movie,
Mhm.
and she would just go, "Ah." She didn't say anything though.
No,
I thought it was scary though.
At least with my cousins, they would always say that she would be like, "Ay, mis hijos," and then she
Yeah.
would just like be like walking around.
That's
there
kinda
was
creepy.
there was one time when we went hiking up in the mountains, and we were just like saying it. We were just like yelling it. We were like, "Ay, mis hijos," or whatever, because we were little kids. We were
Yeah.
just like yelling it, and then we could see people kind of walking up the mountain too, but and then we eventually just see them going in a different direction.
Oh, because they heard that.
Yeah.
I remember that. I think I was there.
Yeah.
No? Yeah. It's cool because there's like I don't know, the geography of Mexico is really cool. It's basically all on mountains. Like
Mhm.
most of Mexico is on top of a mountain.
So would you guys say like like that kind of what is it, superstition? What would you call it? Would you say that's a big part of like Mexican culture down there at least? Or even here? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like there's a lot of I think it's called superstitions. I forget what else it's called.
I would say that it is, yeah. I think in general, the culture is very spiritual. So
Yeah.
as much as there's positive spiritual like beliefs,
There's also negative ones.
yeah, like demons and shit. I always felt like when I went to Mexico, I don't know if our listeners can agree. I always felt like if somebody told me a ghost story in Mexico, I would believe it more, than if they told me in the United States. I'd be like, that's bullshit. But if I was in Mexico and they're like, don't go to those cemeteries because they're pretty haunted and they usually are active after 11 p.m., you wouldn't see me anywhere close to those fucking cemeteries.
How come? Is there genuine question? Would you say that like when you go there, there's like it just feels different? Like there's a...
My personal belief is if you look at the history of Mexico, it's where obviously there was like a lot of bloodshed from even when the New World was discovered, like when all the conquistadors and like all Christopher Columbus and all those motherfuckers pulled up, massacres and genocides, on top of then like hundreds of years of those people being enslaved, and then on top of even now, modern day, with like a lot of gang cartel violence, which isn't everywhere in Mexico, but is prevalent there. I feel like when you put that all, there's just a lot of bad energy. And the whole like lore and concept of ghosts is that
it's bad energy.
Yeah, it's bad energy. It's people with like unfinished business coming back. I was teaching my nephew about ghosts too. I was telling him what ghosts are. I was like, bro, you know what a ghost is? And he's like, nah, because he's 5 years old. And so I broke it down for him. But I told him, and little warning, disclaimer, I was like, they're not real, so don't even trip, bro. Don't even trip. But they feed off fear, so just don't be scared if you feel like you see a ghost.
I don't know. I feel like I've never gotten that vibe, but I feel like the only reason a lot of people, I guess, get that vibe, at least from where like we're from, and I'm guessing that this is just because all of Mexico is just fairly like kind of empty because it's all countryside. You know, it's like it's kind of like all farm and all land for the most part, at least in the areas that I've been to. It just seems like that, and I think just a lot of people, I mean, they're working like long ass hours where they just like think they saw something, and I think that's where stories come from, because I feel like a lot of the stories, at least that I've heard, like, I mean, mom even talks about them that she used to be up like at 2 or 3 in the morning because they would do stuff for like work, but she says she never saw anything. But I think if like she's there with like a group of people, and there's a lot of people who probably have like jobs that are that long, or they have to be up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, like I'm sure that they're probably just like in their head kind of like hallucinating about something that they saw. At least that's what I kind of think about it, because I feel like people, it's also, at least back then, it used to be really, really dark, because when we used to go, there was like no light. Where my parents were from, there was like no light at all. Like it was really just pitch dark. Like there was one light bulb like in the street, and that was it, and everything else was really dark. So I feel like, I think that's where some of the stories come from. And I think some people like also are just, they kind of like playing tricks on people.
So you're a non-believer, bro? You're a non-believer? You never know. What if that's what they want you to believe?
I mean, that's cool.
Well, you know what's funny? I don't know if mom's ever told you this story. But my mom said that she used to hang out with like a woman in her town that was supposedly a witch. Have you ever heard this story? My mom told me that there was like a lady that my mom would always go see and like hang out with, like this really old lady, and that her mom and like a bunch of the kids that she hung out with would always tell her to not go there because she was like a witch. But my mom says that it's just because she did a lot of like a holistic like medicine. She had like a lot of herbs and shit that she would do, and that's where people got the misconception.
So she was kind of like a curandera.
Yeah. So I guess people more attributed her to like a witch doctor rather than like an actual doctor.
Yeah.
But my mom talks about that.
I feel like I remember hearing about some people from at least where they're from, and they do a lot of like those things where they do a lot of healing with like herbs, and then they would be like
stigmatized,
labeled as like witches.
Witch.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Bro, back in the day, have you heard that? Like it was I think women were literally dying out because of the witch hunts. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, because it was very obviously the whole test for it was
the drowning thing, right?
Yeah, and
they would tie a bunch of iron and shit on you. And they'd throw you in the river, and if you sank, well, you were human, but you were dead because you drowned. But if you floated, they would shoot you. So it's kind of like, I don't know, kind of a loaded test.
Yeah.
You die either way.
Yeah.
You
So.
die either way. Because if you were a witch, they would just burn you then. Which I doubt any of that ever happened. I doubt anybody ever floated up. Unless somebody was...
I don't know if this is true. I think I remember in passing something about how, like, at the time during the, like, witch trials, there was something like, there's like a mold or something that was going around, and somebody like hypothesized that it was that was making them, everybody all like trip
hysteric?
out. Yeah, I forgot what it was, but I thought that was an interesting like theory, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see it. Yeah, that's why, bro, being a woman is hard. Like Barbie movie showed. Being a woman is hard, bro, for generations. I see you, Julie. Go ahead. Go ahead, bro. Let me sit down and listen to what a woman has to say.
All of a sudden. No, I'm just kidding.
All of a sudden. I was raised by women. My mother was a woman. I had a sister who was a woman. Have you like that scene in Barbie where he's like, I have aunts.
I'm the nephew of an aunt who's a woman.
But moving on a little bit, one of our fans sent us in a topic to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and read what she wrote to us. I'm going to keep her anonymous. So I'm going to call her Sama Hayek. Sama Hayek messaged us. And she said, "Hi, guys. I have a topic I'd like you guys to get into. Skipping over a little bit. Latinos are usually centered around helping one another and the community, but growing up, I've always felt like my space was invaded because my parents were always doing favors for friends and family. We constantly housed uncles and friends of my parents for months throughout my life, and right now, I'm kind of going through it again. My question is, do you guys ever feel guilty for not continuing certain traditions or customs that your own family has made? I feel selfish for the fact that I like my own space and wouldn't help just anyone because we're related some way. I've been told I'm selfish and problematic. It hurts, yet I wonder why should I feel guilty for being who I am?" First of all, thanks Sama Hayek for messaging us. That is beautiful. I think it's interesting. Julia, how do you feel?
So are we going based off like the question?
You go based off the question, based off your own experience.
Well, because I'm trying to think, like, if we ever housed anyone.
We definitely did, but it was mainly like grandma.
Yeah. I feel like, I guess if I think about my grandma, I feel like maybe there was a couple of times when it did feel weird that we would like house her. But I'm like, I mean, that's my mom's mom. Like, I can't really say anything about that one because it's like, that's them. I feel like I'm trying to think. I feel like there was times when we did house other people.
Yeah, no, there was. Our uncle and his entire family.
And I feel like those were times when we were a lot younger. So for the most part, it was just our cousins that we were there with, which was fine. But I'm trying to think of these other people that I think I remember we used to house. I always thought it was just weird a little bit that we used to house people that weren't like our family sometimes. But I feel like other than that, like I feel like I was too young to really care about it. If I think about it now, I think it was a little bit, maybe it did bother me sometimes a little bit because I was like, I prefer just for it to just be us, like us family, instead of like all of our extended family. But I feel like I never really found it that much of an issue. I mean, those times it was always just when we were young and like, they were only there for a bit. I think if they would have maybe stayed longer, I would have found it an issue because then I would have been like, this is weird. Like, why are they here kind of thing?
Yeah.
But.
Well, that's funny because I feel like I remember that and I was obviously younger than you just by like pure nature. And I felt like I was kind of annoyed by it. I felt like, and I was younger, but I was annoyed by it in a selfish way because I was just a kid. I was like, bro, like I just want my own room. Like I want my own space to like be able to do my own things.
Yeah.
And I guess putting in myself in her perspective, it depends on the closeness between you guys and family members. Because I'm sure if like you're not really close to your uncle or your aunt, for them to come up to you and be like, can I live in your house for a few days? And it's like, well, I mean, you're family, but I don't really know you.
Yeah.
Because I think, I don't know, it then plays into the topic. Do you think, like, is blood thicker than water? What is it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I get what you mean.
Well, because people bring up that stuff, right? About how, like, should you always forgive your family, always be, like, loving your family, like, no matter what they do, because that's still your family?
No.
No? So why not? Why not?
Well, because I feel like, I don't know. I feel, and I think this is just from my own personal experience. Like, this isn't like them living here. I think this is me just like going through some stuff that I went through with like my own family members, where they tended to like talk shit about us, and I was kind of always like, why? Because like we didn't. I at least felt that me as a child, I never did anything to someone who was grown. Like, I was kind of like, me as a child, like you're the adult here and you're fighting with a child. Like, I always thought that was like, why? Like, I just thought that was weird, because it's like you have to be the adult here, and kind of like, I get it, like, but it's also like talking shit about, I guess, me when I'm kind of like still really young and still learning. Like, there's a way to, I guess, teach me a lesson than like being a shit talker about it, you know? And I always felt like a lot of those things really affected me growing up. And I feel like there were certain things where I was kind of like, I feel like it wasn't fair to the way that they were treating me. And I feel like, yeah, they're family, but I feel like if they were family, like they would at least be a little more better about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why for me, I was always like, no, like, I feel like I can't really forgive them, because like, I think it's a lot more damaging because of the fact that they're family. And I think for me personally, I was more like, no, like, yeah, you're family now, but like, it's kind of like, why is it that now all of a sudden, like, I have to be okay with the way you treated me, you know, like if we were family.
I get what you mean. You're kind of saying like, just because we're family doesn't give you the excuse to treat me however you want.
Yeah.
And like, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I get what you mean. I guess trying to like, I guess based on like how I'm interpreting her question, it sounds like she's saying like it's for people who she's not all that close with.
Yeah.
And it's just more they're kind of doing that where it's like, oh, but we're family, you know? I don't think you're particularly a bad person for either.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're that kind of person who's like, I'll take you in, like, I think I commend you for that. I think that's cool. But I also don't think you're like selfish if you're like, I don't really like that. Because I get it, you know, if there's people who you aren't like close with at all, and then all of a sudden when the chips are down, all of a sudden they're family. I get that, like, because it seems a little like this entire time when everything was good, you never made an effort to be my family. But now when you need something, it's like we're suddenly family. Yeah. I get that. So I don't think, I guess it's context heavy, you know? So like if that's the case, I feel like I don't think you're selfish. I don't think that's bad, you know? But yeah.
I think it's a tricky line because I guess relating it to my own experience, that aspect that she talks about in what she wrote to us about how she feels guilty because Latinos are usually centered around helping one another. I feel like it's a tricky line because I could see that going from, oh, like we're supposed to do this, like this is our culture, like we're supposed to help each other, but people just take advantage of you instead. Yeah. And I feel like I see that with a lot of family members. I see family members ask other family members for money or for favors and they never repay the favor back. Yeah. And it's like, well, we're family, like this is our culture, like we're supposed to do this. But then, you know, years and days add up, you know, all those favors add up and then you never really reciprocate it. So I kind of understand her frustration because I could see that feeling of like, why do I have to give up personally what like I want to do for others who I feel like wouldn't do the same. Yeah. You get me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a pretty tricky topic. She also said specifically taking on family traditions regarding doing favors for the sake of your family. So in general, like, I don't know, because I'm relating to what you're saying about how I had thinking about family members who I guess didn't treat you the best, and thinking about how like, oh, like why would I still have to show them respect if they haven't shown me respect? Yeah, it's pretty tricky, bro.
Well, because I guess the way I saw it, again, because I feel like in the moment they were the adult, right? But now because I'm grown, like all of a sudden we all have to be adults, right? When it was like at the time, I feel like you should have understood that like I was a kid, like I didn't like understand, you know, or like, and I feel like all of a sudden now that I'm grown, I have to be the adult in the situation again. When I was younger, I was also still the adult because like you were treating me like I was an adult, you know. But at the time I was a child. Like, how was I supposed to know kind of those things, right? But I feel like also with you, the thing with like having family at home was that I feel like they would use a lot your room or something, right?
Um,
Or no?
times, yeah.
Because I feel like I don't remember that much, but I feel like it really generally didn't bother me a lot. But I feel like it's because for me, I think I generally thought they were only there for like a day or two. Like I don't remember them being there for that long. So like I think that's why for me, now thinking about it, I don't really like.
I mean,
No,
oh,
it bothered me just because I felt like, I guess I wouldn't mind if I did it out of my own intention.
Mm,
If I made the conscious decision that these people are my family members and I want to do this out of like the affection in my heart.
mm,
But being forced to do that feels like you don't see me as a person. Like you don't validate how I feel. You don't like you don't respect me. Like I feel like there's like an aspect of respect that I feel like it's as if like I'm a tool that's being used. And I don't know if that's how she feels. I don't know if that's how La Salma feels right here. But I kind of always felt that way.
yeah.
I always felt like I only exist to be used. I only exist when there needs to be an aid, when there needs help. But if it was beyond that, they couldn't give less of a shit. If I didn't have a space to house people,
Yeah.
then I would be useless to them. And like that's where I feel like it really bothers me, because it's like this whole argument of like, oh, it's because we're family, you know, there's so much love here, there's this like illusion of a connection here. And it's like, well, if it was actually there, then why do I feel like if I didn't have what you wanted, you would never hit me up? You know, you wouldn't even be here. And I guess that's what I kind of like. I don't know if this is how she feels, but like interpreting from my own experience where I felt like my space was constantly invaded, that's how I felt. I felt like what bothers me is this isn't my own decision.
Yeah.
This is being forced. And I feel like my boundary is being violated, but I'm supposed to just smile and say like this is okay because we're family.
Yeah.
You get me? It's pretty tricky though. I think it's tricky also because I think the initial face value of like, oh, I don't want to house my family members
sounds like aesthetically bad.
sounds just like just surface level selfish and bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if there's like a problem in it where that bothers you, then I don't think you're selfish for not wanting to do it like at all. Like I don't think, like if there's something about it that's like genuinely bothering you, I don't think you're selfish whatsoever. I would say you're only selfish if like it isn't a burden. Like if it's like you do know them. Like let's say it's your mom and like and she's like, oh, I need a place to stay or something like that. I feel like then like but like if the context was, oh, your mom treated you like shit when you were a child and like threw you out at 9, you know, I get that.
Yeah.
And it sounds based on like the connotation that there's more of a negative like relationship with the family. And I feel like in that instance, then I don't think you're selfish whatsoever to be like, nah, like leave me alone.
Yeah.
You know, because it seems very, they're just taking advantage of you. Like you said, like they only want you for something that you have. And they're taking advantage of the fact that like, oh, because it sounds like they're guilt tripping you, you know? Oh, but we're family, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're going to kick out family? Like, wow, you know? It's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially this sentence right here. I feel selfish for the fact that I like my own space and wouldn't help just anyone because we're related some way. I feel like that's like kind of what you're saying about how there's this belief that no matter what a family member does to you or how distant you are, like
Blood's thicker than oil.
yeah, you should just initially just click and do anything because you're family members. I mean, there's stories about it, even in fiction, about people find out they have a relative like in New York and they fly over there to go like see them because they're like, oh, maybe they'll help me get a job and stuff. And yeah, like initially that sounds really good, but think about just seeing a stranger come up to you and already expecting these things from you just because of like something biological in your genes. Is that initially right? Like, is that right? Like, Julie, if you and me didn't know we had a fourth, you had a third brother. If we had another sibling, and they came to you asking you for $1,000, this is assuming you have $1,000.
Like in George Lopez.
Yeah. Is that right? Would you give them that money? Like, honestly, like, not even trying to lead you anyway.
No.
You wouldn't.
No.
Why?
Because I don't know them. I have trust issues.
See, I do think that those scenarios are more interesting though.
Mm-hmm.
I get it if like the way she says it, when she says related in some way.
Yeah.
It sounds like like cousins of cousins type shit.
Yeah.
You know, but when it's like a long lost brother, or like we got separated at birth, like you're adopted or whatever type shit, or you were my dad and I didn't know you were my dad, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it changes, like, you know, like if like that. But I do think for some reason in me, that one feels a little more, like it has a little more bite. Like if I had like a long lost brother and he came up to me and like was asking me for help and I didn't know he was like my long lost brother, I feel like, yeah, I'd probably react like that. But there would be something in me that would react a little differently versus if it was like my second cousin who came up to me, you know? So I get the struggle. Like, I don't think like, if you're like, oh, I don't know what to do, then you're tripping. I feel like there's like, it's valid to be a little like, what's the word? Hesitant, cagey about it, I guess, selfish. You know? But like I said, that's a very like specific like scenario. But yeah. I do think that one's interesting.
First, I'd be like, bro, what? Somebody has some explaining to do.
I know, right? It would probably be from like our dad's side or something.
Especially if I'd be like, if I'd hear about that he wants money, I'm like,
no hug first.
I know.
No like
yeah.
No getting to know me.
Yeah.
No crying in each other's arms.
Yeah.
That's why I say I'm like I have trust issues. I'm like no, I'm not giving you money.
What if they pull up like with the test, like the DNA test, like literally pull up and then the other hand they have like those like when you pay for something and they say at tip. Yeah, they're like for the $1,000. It's like we're related, bro. Like I swear to you, we're related. And then the iPad in the other hand. I'd
be like. It says we're only 99.9%. Where's the 1%?
What's the 1%? What would that even mean?
That would mean you guys were twins.
Oh, you guys are genetically the same? I know. What'd you do if it was literally a twin? You too, Brandon. What'd you do if a literal twin came up?
Like I said, I feel like...
I'd faint.
You would faint?
I'd pass out.
I don't know.
For you would like...
I don't know.
Come live with me.
I don't think I'd immediately jump at the opportunity, but like I said, that like scenario has more bite where I'd be like, damn, like we're like the same, like you're me, like if we're twins, especially, you know. I don't know. I definitely pause and think at least.
I can't doubt that if they look exactly like me. I'm like, wait a sec.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a clone.
Because I don't know. I think I don't know, to a degree. Like if someone's that close to you, like a twin or like a brother or something like that, there's something about it that just has some sort of resonance that you can't really explain.
I guess it's very dependent on how closely related you are.
Yeah.
And like because I feel like I get in your point where it's like if they've never been or like they never come by to like visit you or anything, but all of a sudden when they need something, they like they finally come by.
I think I know what it is. Like, I think when it's like super closely related, like let's say it's a father or like a brother, I think there's a lot of things that like come with that. Like let's say if you didn't know your dad and like you've seen your dad, like, you know, I'm sure you've always wanted a dad, you know? So you're probably like, fuck, like I've always, you know, there's that. Or like if you have a long lost brother, there's probably an aspect of that. Like, oh, I've always wanted a brother, you know, like someone like that, which makes it probably a little different because those relationships in general tend to be a lot closer because it matches the blood closeness. Like, versus if it was like a cousin, like, I mean, sure, I see the memes where it's like my favorite cousin, but I haven't like ever stayed up at night being like, oh, I wish I had a cousin, you know, like stuff like that. So I think maybe that's why it has more of a like impactful, like.
Yeah, because I mean, these scenarios happen where like somebody will meet a long lost brother or their long lost dad. And they'll be like, "Wow, like I'm so excited to meet you." And then they'll be like, "Yeah, can you spot me like $500?" Yeah. And then they just completely take advantage of them.
Well, because I mean, in like the Fresh Prince, when Will's dad shows up, right? He's like, he can't see that his dad's obviously kind of a deadbeat,
Yeah.
but because he's always wanted his dad around,
Mhm.
I think it's stuff like that where
Yeah.
that's why it's probably like, I don't know.
But you see, they do it. They choose to house those people out
Yeah.
of the goodness of their heart, but those people don't always have the best intentions.
But
I think
but
I think to a degree, like we can talk about it and be like however we want because like we're removed from that situation.
Mhm.
But I feel like being in that situation, you're probably a little clouded and blinded. And I don't blame people for being like that. Because I'm telling you, probably the scorn of not having a dad and then suddenly he shows up is probably makes you like an emotional wreck.
Yeah.
And the same thing of like, oh, I've always wanted a brother and we got separated at birth. Like, I'm sure that's like, that clouds your judgment a lot, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I think it's extra shitty when people who are your family know that and take advantage of it. So like, I don't know. That's why I think it's so tricky because it's like, yeah, I think on the outside, the right thing to do or whatever, I can be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't take in these people or whatever. But I don't blame people for being like, I don't know what to do because I can acknowledge that there's a lot of like emotion there, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
You see, Julie, you
What?
gotta learn, bro.
Learn what?
Sometimes people don't have the best intentions for you.
Well, because think about it, Julie. Let's say you had a long lost sister
Mm.
who showed up. You always wanted a sister. You grew up with brothers.
Mhm.
You don't think there'd be like an emotional, like, damn, like, I think, in my opinion, I bet that,
I'd be like,
you'd be like, interesting, you know?
I'm
That
is
would be
she- I'm like,
crazy.
is she really my sister?
But it was like, she's like your twin and she has like the papers and shit.
She's holding up the papers and the iPad
I'm
in the other
telling-
hand. I'm telling you.
I'm telling you, I'd faint.
Yeah.
I'd faint. I'd be like, ain't no fucking way. I'm just seeing myself right now.
I don't think I've
Bro, cause
ever fainted.
Because imagine, like, I don't know. I think that'd be the first time I'd ever pass out. Cause like,
She's like,
I'd be like, bro, if she looks exactly like me, I'd freak out. I'd be like, ain't no way.
I like come out and I'm like, bro, who's at the door? And then I just look at both of you and I'm like, oh. Like one of those like Disney scenes where I'm like looking at two.
I think eventually, like when I get past that, I'd be like, oh my God, like I have a fucking twin sister. Like I'd want to get to know her for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like if I just see it from like shows where it's always like, and then they're like evil or some shit. They are taking advantage of me.
I like how you're running with like that it's a twin specifically though. It doesn't have to be a twin.
No, it has to be a twin.
If not, you wouldn't believe
No,
it.
I wouldn't
But what if
believe
it looks just like you? Then?
No,
Like-
that's crazy.
Oh yeah, they look just like you.
I'd be like, where's the DNA test?
Cause I don't know. I have a brother and I feel like we look a lot alike, even though we're not
Mm-hmm.
twins. So I feel like if he came up, I'd be like, no, I believe you. We're probably related. You look a lot like.
I'd be
me.
like, nah. No, the other thing that I kept thinking about was people asking for money.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of those. I've gotten a lot of people because I made a lot of friends in Mexico, like where my parents are from, and like
Damn.
I always randomly get hit up about like they need money, and I'm always like, bro, I'm broke as shit. I don't have money.
Yeah.
Like so I tell them, I was like, oh no, like I don't have any money to like lend, because they're always like, can I borrow some money or can I have some money? And I'm always like, no, I don't have any. But they're not, and none of them, I think, none of them have been relatives. I think only one was. And I was like, no, I don't have money. Like, I don't have anything to send.
How did that make you feel?
The first time that it happened, it was really weird because, I mean, so I guess a little bit is one of them was actually, so I had a boyfriend. One of them was my boyfriend's sister.
Yikes.
She had asked me for money, and that one felt really, really weird because I was like, because it was my boyfriend's sister or my ex-boyfriend's sister. And I thought it felt really, really weird. I was like, I was able to say no. It just felt weird that she was like asking me for money. Because then I was kind of like, do they only like me because of that? Or like, are they only talking or like getting to know me because of that?
Yeah.
I mean, I never felt it from like the guy that I was with, but after that, I kind of felt it from, I guess, his siblings in a way. Mostly just from her. But then eventually, like, I got over it. Like, I was kind of like, okay, whatever. And then some of them started becoming kind of like distant cousins. I think they're like cousins or something. I don't know exactly because like the family's pretty big. But somebody else had asked me for money, and I thought that one was also weird because I was like, I've never talked to you in my life, and like you're asking me for money.
No, that's weird.
So I don't know. I always feel like, I guess to me, it really put me in this thing where I felt like people thought that I had a lot more money. Like people thought I was rich or like my family's rich. I was like, my parents have like a good amount for themselves, you know, but I personally don't have anything. Like everything is from my parents. I'm starting to have a little bit for myself because I have a job now, but like, I remember just thinking about it and I was like, I feel like people generally think that like we have a lot of money because we're from here. Because a lot of people that were asking were from like my parents' small hometown. So I was kind of like, I feel like people would generally think that. And there was one time where the same sister one time told me, she's like, why do you hang out with us? Like, why do you talk to us? And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, well, you're from there. You're from like the upper class and we're here like from the lower class. Like, why do you talk to us? And
Really?
I was like, what? I was like, I don't see you guys like that. Like, I feel like you guys are generally just like friends. Like, you guys are cool, and I really like hanging out with you guys. And I was like, I don't see it that way. And I remember when she said that, I felt so like, I guess bad, because I was kind of like, does everyone see me that way? Like, does everyone kind of think of that of me? Because and it made me think like, does everyone think that I'm very like, I don't know what the word is, but it's like, do people think that I put myself in this high pedestal that I think like I'm higher than everyone? And so I was just like, am I giving that off? And I was like, and I always thought I wasn't, like, because I was like, I feel like, again, like we would go there all the time, so I felt like I grew up there, you know, and that's why I feel like I gained all those friends, because I thought like we're all cool with each other, you know, and I never saw them as anything lower than that, you know. Like, I saw how they lived, but I never judged them. I was like, this is how they live here. Like, I never saw it as like anything bad.
Yeah.
And so when she said that to me, I was kind of like, what? Like, I was kind of hurt. I was really hurt. I was more like, damn, like, well, especially because at the time that was like, I guess my ex-boyfriend's family. And I was like, that's how they see me. Like, that's how they genuinely see me. Because I genuinely thought we all had good relationships. Like, I genuinely thought we were like friends. And like, to hear that, I was kind of like, I guess I was wrong. I guess like I saw it differently than they did.
Well, I mean, that's interesting, bro, because it sounds like you took it very personal, but like the way I interpret it as you're telling me it is, I took it as that I guess there's like a big like classism in Mexico, and they feel as though people down there, they only interact with people who are in the same class, and they don't go higher or lower.
Yeah.
I didn't see it as something personal, but obviously you're the one experiencing it. But I'm just saying, like, it could be that. It could just be that they're just saying that as a byproduct of where they live, and not because they feel as though you're pretentious and you give off pretentious energy. Yeah. But I mean, that's shocking, bro. Yeah. That's really shocking.
I just thought it was interesting hearing that, because I was just like, I had never heard that, like, ever, at least from anyone. I mean, I had heard it a little bit from like other cousins, where I guess, but it's more like gossip. I don't know how real it was. Yeah. But I do remember hearing that people would think that I was like
big shit.
Yeah, or something. And that's why, to me, especially when I heard that again from someone else, where they were like, why do you hang out with us, kind of thing, I was kind of like, so am I giving that off? Like, I generally thought I was never giving that off. I was like, especially for me being like the quiet person, I was like, I never really thought I was giving that off, because I would talk to everyone. I never like tried to isolate anyone. Like, I always talked to everyone. And so then I think that's why for me, I took it a little more like personal, because I was like, so am I giving that sort of energy off or something?
I don't think so, bro. I'm really convinced that I think it's like a classist thing, because the way it sounds, it's as if they're so shocked because it's such a culture shock of like people here don't do that. But obviously in the United States, and also who you are as a person, you don't care about that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't hang out with people just because of the money that they make.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's because of something you gave off. I want to say no, but you were there. You're the one who experienced it. It's just really shocking me, bro, because like to them it was such a huge shock to see somebody like you hanging out with them, and I guess like it turned into envy in the way that they thought about you, of like, oh, maybe you're only here because it makes yourself feel better, you know? But
Yeah.
I'm more of the school of thought where I think it's more of like a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Rather than them personally having like a vendetta against you. But I don't know. That's crazy, bro. That's so crazy. Especially because you said it was your boyfriend's family. That's interesting.
Well, because I feel like, at least I feel like that's what I grew up a lot with, especially because I would go with mom and papi like all the time to Mexico. I feel like I grew up a lot with seeing that, like the whole classes part of it, where it was like people thought we were high shit because we were from here. But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like us as a collective and as a family, I don't think we ever tried to do that. I don't think we ever were like, oh, we're big shit because like we live out here now. I don't think we ever gave that off, but I feel like other people did interpret that. And I think, I mean, I didn't realize it until right now that you're saying it. But I feel like I sometimes took it a little personal because of just how young I was, and like I saw them as friends. And to then eventually kind of hear that, I was kind of like, so then people do really see us like that? And like it started, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I grew up with that a lot, with like hearing that a lot from people about us, like about our family.
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of grew up seeing that a lot. So when I heard it, I was kind of like, damn, like this is for real thing.
Yeah. Well, because I assumed that you're saying that you were giving off this warmth and this like friendly vibe to everybody, and people don't just assume things off like nothing. Like if people felt that way, I assume it's because they've seen other people act that way.
Yeah.
And so they like add that attribute to you, but you never really did that. I mean, bro, I know you. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
She'd just be vibing, you know? Like, has Julie ever flexed on you, bro? She ever flexed her money on you?
Yeah. No.
She has? She ever went band for band?
What money?
With you?
What money?
Julie's lovely. I don't know why anybody would think that.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would think that you're like, I'm hanging out with you. What's even the school of thought? Like, what do you think let's say it was personal. What's even the school of thought? So
I guess if it's personal, I'm assuming it's probably like people are like, oh, you just hang out with us to feel better about yourself. Like, you know, it's like, like if I'm
put us down, but that doesn't.
Well, I'm assuming it's like if they're thinking, right, if it is like that, it's like, oh, you wouldn't hang out with other rich people because then you feel normal. But if you hang out with broke people, you feel like a god, like you are. But I don't think it's that. I think it's probably more culture shock, maybe a sprinkle of the other. But I do think it's probably more culture shock.
Because people talk about all the time that Mexico has a big like classist problem. I've never lived in Mexico, so I wouldn't like say that's true.
Yeah,
but I've heard a lot of people. I mean, Ellie
she talked about it on the podcast that they're very classist down there. So So it may have taken you maybe more than a decade to realize this, bro. But I don't know if it was ever personal. Yeah. It might have just been because this classism is really bad. Yeah. But
well, because I think it's just like I didn't like get it because I was really, really young.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I never understood why they were that way, because some of it wasn't just like, some of it was also coming from like our own personal family, like our own like uncles or cousins. And to me, at least I always saw it as just like them being like, I did see it as like they were being a little envious sometimes, where I'm kind of like, how's that my fault? Like I kind of just was born in this. Like I didn't like ask for it, or it was kind of like, you know, my parents just had me and they were working and they built all this for us, and it's kind of like I'm kind of here living in it. And I was kind of like, I'm generally just being me, where I want to like be kind to everyone and talk to everyone because everyone's my family. And like I also feel like I grew up there, so I was kind of like, I wanted to make friends. And so then I think that's why I didn't see it, and I took it a lot more personal because I was young and I was just like, what? Like I was being so nice, and like, why is it that like this is how it is now? And And I guess I didn't get it until like eventually kind of growing up a little more, that I was like, oh, I guess it's a thing that I wasn't really, I guess, ever aware of.
Yeah.
Like for me, it was colorism. Like I remember as a kid, I always wondered why everybody from my family's town was like didn't have anything, lived basically like in dirt huts, like was super poor, under resourced. And I didn't really see it until I was older, and I was like, but that's weird. On TV, it's all like white actors.
Yeah.
I didn't really see that. To me, as my little kid brain is just like, I guess they just have bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get older and you see the matrix or whatever you want to call it. You see you just see the systems and the laws that keep people like thinking and acting the way they do.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, we literally talked about just a few minutes ago about how that town didn't have electricity until the 1980s.
Yeah.
Like, bro, electricity was invented like hundreds of years ago. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy, bro.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yeah.
There's small towns that get forgotten.
Yeah. This is just to say that you're good, bro. You're good. You don't give off that vibe, trust.
Yeah.
You don't even give anything close to that vibe, in my opinion. I can't even, of the few examples that I can think of people who do give off that vibe, I don't even know them. They're like media figures. Like, you know, like I think that's such a rare thing
Yeah.
that people do. But speaking of traditions,
I do actually have a question for you guys though.
okay.
¿Cómo se dice sponsored?
Is sponsored?
Is sponsored?
A sponsorship? Is that actually how you say it?
I actually
This is
don't
the
know.
second weekend we did. We should have.
I know we should have looked that up.
Well, in case you guys haven't caught on, the Todo Chido podcast is now sponsored by Yo Sabo the Game.
Yes, sir. Yo Sabo the Game is the new Latino card game for your next game night. You could test out your Spanish, answer trivia, and even win some fun challenges. But better yet, Yo Sabo the Game is a small business that is ran by 3 Mexican Americans, just like this podcast, who just wanted to practice their Spanish, but ended up creating a new fun way to do so. So make sure to check this game out. It's upside down. It's upside down.
I did it on purpose.
For those of you listening, tune in just to see that. That's funny. Your face too, because you had like the biggest grin.
Well, y'all saw us a couple episodes play this, so make sure y'all purchase one. Y'all can check them out at yosabodegame.com. They also can be found on all social media platforms under the username yosabo_the_game. Thank you again to Yosabo for sponsoring our episode.
Yeah, thanks, Yo Sabo.
We appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Yeah,
Really
you have
Y'all
no
should check them
idea.
out. Y'all should
Yeah.
for sure check them out.
It's actually a really fun game, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I've played it as it was intended, drunk with my friends. It was pretty. It was
I
pretty fun.
don't know if it's intended. To
There's,
play
like, drinking
that,
stuff
but
in
there,
there,
but
though?
there's like you can.
You
play
can
like
take
that.
shots. Yeah.
Come on,
It's
bro.
educational, bro. It's intended to educate. people.
Anybody who
What's
comes
it
from a Mexican heritage knows they like to drink.
Drink responsibly.
Oh yeah, drink responsibly.
Yeah, drink responsibly.
Yeah. I would make a joke, but because of legal reasons, I won't make a joke of that. But moving on from this topic, I just want to say one final thank you to Sama Hayek for DMing us. I hope we helped you a little bit. I know we probably couldn't get the full scope of what you feel, but that's okay.
But
We still
I
hope.
will say I enjoyed that. So if you guys want us to talk about specific things, let us know. We'll try to put out a story or something like that where you guys
Yeah.
can like answer so we can organize them. But look out for that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was really good. I enjoyed that. I'm glad you guys can feel safe and share your stories with us. Julie, what did you bring for this week?
So I guess with the first one, I'll start since we're talking about the Latino culture. So I had seen this post that a lot of my friends were sharing about, it's called To Every First Gen Latina This Summer. I don't know if you guys have seen it,
No.
but it says, diviértete porque además de trabajar también mereces descansar. Tal vez nuestros padres no tuvieron el lujo de disfrutar de unas buenas vacaciones, pero así como te preocupas por lograr tus metas, también asegúrate apartar tiempo para disfrutar de lo hermoso de lo que es la vida. Let's break the cycle of thinking we don't deserve to have fun because we are so hyper-focused on checking off every goal. I only bring this up because these past few days, I basically was off work And I feel like sometimes when I'm at home and like, I mean, I cleaned because I finally caught up on my cleaning, and because usually like I work for like 10 days straight, and like I'm usually working a lot in the evenings or sometimes in the days. And sometimes when I am home, I feel like I tend to feel a little guilty of like being home and like kind of relaxing. And I feel like a lot of the times I feel like there's something due. Like I feel like I sometimes still have like that school mentality where like I have an essay due, or like I need to be like responding to something. And sometimes when I am home, I feel like I get that weird like urge of like I need to do something, or just feel weird that like I'm just sitting around sometimes. And I realized that like I think I'm trying to work on being okay with like being just home. Because sometimes I feel like it gets a little labeled as being lazy. And I feel like I'm trying to get, I guess, out of that part. And I feel like I just wanted to mention it because I feel like I don't think I'm the only one who feels that way, and not just as a woman, I guess, because it's a lot of like, I have to do a lot of responsibilities of like cleaning the house or like doing the dishes or something like that. But I feel like just everyone kind of feels that way because we're so used to like grinding that we're always like, we have to be working or we have to be doing something because like we have to be somewhere at some part in the time of our lives, right? And I feel like sometimes I feel a little guilty about being home, and I think working on that has been something that I've been trying to do a lot more this time, because like there are times when like I do have days off, like how I have right now. Like I had, I think, like 3 days off. And sometimes I feel like I want to use those to actually relax, but I feel like I can't relax my brain sometimes. I don't know if you guys go through that sometimes when you guys have like days off, or like um or if like just you've been working a lot and like doing those things, but I don't know if you guys have like gone through those things too.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that's one thing that's interesting about first generation of kids. First generation of kids are like workaholics because their parents, it was either work or not survive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think they pass down to us where no matter if it's school or actual work, blue collar jobs, anything, trade jobs, you feel as though you want to keep grinding because that's what your parents did to make sure that they survived. But now that life has become a little bit better for you, you still have that anxiety of if I'm not doing something, I'm not going to survive.
Yeah.
And I think that's why when we have rest days, we feel anxious and we feel lazy. We feel like we're being selfish because we should always be doing something because our parents were always doing something.
Yeah.
But I'm sure our parents can tell us that they wouldn't always want to be working. I mean, I see it through my own mom and my dad. My mom and my dad wish when my older brother was a little baby, they worked less so they could hang out with their baby. You know, I think it's just subconsciously transferred to us.
Yeah.
And so I understand that feeling of feeling like antsy, because that's how I feel when I don't do anything. I can almost basically never feel relaxed. I remember I was talking to a good friend recently, and I was talking about how like in the past, whenever anything's happened to me, like I got sick or some family like tragedy would happen, I would still go to work. I would still go to school. I would still do all those things because I felt like staying at home would make me feel worse. And so I understand that sentiment that you're kind of bringing up.
I feel like a lot of it too is what I used to do is that especially like in those moments where like something was going on with our family or like or anything, I always felt like I always kept myself busy so I wouldn't think about it. I feel like I remember especially in college when I was going through a lot and like being away from family, that I was like, for me to not think about it, I would go to work, or like I would keep myself busy of like getting more like schoolwork or like going to the library or something, or like anything to keep me away from that. And I think that's why sometimes when I'm sitting at home, I think they all kind of just come back, where it's like of like those things of whatever it is now, right? Currently, whatever's going on, that like it just makes me like think about it because I'm finally sitting with my thoughts.
Yeah. I think there's also like an unfortunate intersection. I think what you're saying is a real aspect, but I also think there's an aspect of American culture that's very I guess not good for people in general, but I guess for people like you too. Because I don't know, I feel like you see it a lot in media. There's always that like, you got to keep working if you want to get to the next level. You got to work. What do they call it? American hustle culture, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think about how like there's a lot of, especially specifically with like maybe a homeless person, that people are like, oh, he's just too lazy to work. I think that one of those things that I always thought was kind of like, I guess a little haunting was there's this interview of Michael Jordan on Oprah, and Charles Barkley says something about how like he tried to give a homeless guy like a quarter, and Michael Jordan snapped it out of his hand and was like, if he can shake a cup, he can say welcome to McDonald's. And I think like, I don't know, something about that was really interesting, because if you think Michael Jordan, who's more like representation of America in the 90s, you know, it's kind of like, it's interesting because it's like people have that connotation of like, sometimes people just go through stuff, you know. Sometimes people are suffering from a mental health crisis, sometimes a family tragedy, sometimes there's all kinds of shit that goes wrong. So to label somebody as like lazy for needing a break is kind of like, I don't know about that. Like, sometimes people need breaks, you know?
Yeah, going off what you said too about how you would go to school, you go to work, you go out, all those things distract you from what you're going through, but it doesn't make them go away. It just postpones them. And like, that's the biggest thing about it, is that like, you think it's a solution, but it's really not. The only solution is to take the rest and then address whatever is going on. I think it's just, I get it though. I mean, it's scary. It's scary. And depending on what the situation is, it's pretty scary. I also think now, adding to what you said, that's fucking crazy, bro.
What?
That's so crazy. Yeah. The Michael Jordan thing.
Yeah.
Cause like, wow. Like it almost seems like it was pre-planned. Like it almost seems like it's something that they would put on TVs to like brainwash people. Not saying this is true. And it's not.
I was thinking, I just thought it was interesting because I was watching, They Live the other day. You've seen that, right?
Yeah,
John Carpenter, and how like he puts on the glasses and you see consume, work.
Break it down for Julie.
It's just the premise of this movie. It's a John Carpenter movie. It's this guy. He's kind of down on his luck, and he's essentially homeless. He's kind of a drifter, and he runs into this kind of what looks like a cult. And he discovers that they have these glasses, right? These special glasses, but the police are after him. Long story short, the glasses unblind him. He sees that, you know, everything that we have, whether it's TV, magazines, billboards, it's all brainwashing from the rich elites who are aliens or like creatures, right? In this movie, and it'll say consume, obey, work, no free thinking, that kind of stuff. It's like I'm surprised it's not bigger, given how the what do you call it, the culture right now? The culture right now about how like obey all that shit is like super. I'm surprised it's not like gotten a huge following, but I thought that was interesting. I don't know if I 100% am like, see, everything's like that, but I think out of all the movies that kind of try to like I'm surprised that movie's not bigger than The Matrix, given like, you know? But I digress.
But it's to say that like all the stuff that we see is teaching us to continue grinding, continue working, continue to make the system that is whatever the United States working. And at the expense of us, expense of our mental health, expense of our like body health, you know, holistically, everything.
And I feel like it's sometimes a little difficult when like a lot of it is like financially, like where it's like, man, I should be working because like I need to start paying my bills, or like to even go out with my friends, like I need money to like so we can go out to eat. And I think that's why a lot of us get stuck in that, where it's like we need to be working. But I think some people forget that, because I do see other people who get caught up on it and then they don't use their money to actually do anything. And I feel like, I don't know, I think, I guess me bringing this up is kind of, I guess, bringing more awareness to it, that, you know, like it's okay to like relax and like be home and stuff. And I think now I'm starting to get a little better about it. I think it's a little hard though when like I live with my parents, and sometimes seeing like my parents are working and like my mom's cleaning, and I'm kind of like, I feel bad that I'm just like sitting on the couch or something. But I'm like, I'm using this as like my relaxing time, you know?
Yeah, bro. Doing nothing is doing something, because the nothing is doing a lot for your mental health. Yeah. You know, that aspect of relaxing is going to like continue to give you longevity for whatever you do later. You know, it's like I think Un Poquito. Shout out to them. I
Yeah.
saw a clip that they said, think about a machine that, or you told me this too, or a car. You floor it 100% of the time, it's eventually gonna break. The machine's gonna like burn up, and it's all gonna fall apart. But if you give it that rest, you stop every now and then. You make sure that that engine can go on for a longer time, work better too, healthier. So you're doing a lot, bro.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot. Don't feel
No,
guilty
yeah,
about it.
I don't think anybody should feel guilty. I think all that mindset is purposeful for like a greater, more nefarious cause, but that's another time, I guess.
But I mean, this is all to say to everyone, you know, it's okay, you know, to be home, relax, have your fun, you know. If you don't got money,
Yeah, whatever you like.
you got other things to do.
Whatever you like,
can go
the
to
face
park.
mask, getting faded.
Getting faded.
Well, you won't get old and realize and think, I wish I worked more. So
True. There
you'll
you go.
probably think, I wish I had more fun, rested, hung out with my friends, told that girl I loved her, you know, shit like
Yeah.
that.
Went out with that girl more.
Yeah.
Got with the one that got away. Walked my dog before he passed.
You
I
were-
doubt you'll ever be on your deathbed and be like,
You was-
damn, I should have put in more hours at McDonald's.
Like, fuck, I should have taken that extra shift.
Yeah, you know?
True.
So, yeah.
So rest, bro. Don't feel guilty. I get it. It's easier said than done. Especially for me, bro. I be tossing and turning if like I'm not doing anything. But I try to find new ways to kind of, because I think also some people naturally have the like, I need to do something, but then they'll like, oh, I guess I'll just pick up another job. But that's not the answer. You could do. This is why God created hobbies. You do hobbies. For me, I go to the gym. That's very fun, very recreational. Not for everybody. Some people that's almost another job too. But for some people, it's a
For
hobby.
me.
Yeah. For me, it's a hobby. So, have you heard that? Really, side note. Have you ever heard of that take? I sent it to you about how there's a lot of like gym heads and a lot of people who go to the gym who become self-righteous and pretentious because they think that they're better than everybody for doing something. But it's this gym bro who's saying it, and he's like, but I don't agree, because for those people who can go to the gym multiple times a week and enjoy it and have fun, to them they just like it. Like to them it's just a hobby. But like for people who have to force themselves to go, and every single time they go it's like a hassle.
Yeah.
Like they're doing it because of the health wise. Like if I had a hobby where I loved being a carpenter, I wouldn't look at other people who don't carpet and be like, wow,
Loser.
you're lazy, you're a loser. You see how I'm
Yeah.
better than you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was such an amazing take, because I'm like, I think that's true. It changed my perspective on it too,
No,
because
yeah.
I really like going to the
I
gym.
get what you mean. I feel like there's also like, to get to like some of the physique some people have, it takes a lot of work, and I commend people for that. But some people don't have all that time, you know.
Yeah.
Some people for real don't. Some people for real don't have the money either
Yeah. For like the
to-
diet and
for the
nutrition.
diet or the nutrition and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So like, I get what you mean.
Yeah, it's weird. Like if there's a money aspect to it, there's a time aspect to it. Like how can you look at these people who go to the gym all the time and be like, oh yes, they're so successful.
There's a transportation aspect to it.
Yeah,
Like, some
yeah,
people don't have
transportation. Like, you know, and obviously there's different ways to work out, but to really think that just because you work out a lot that you're somehow better than other people, I feel like there's a lot of aspects you're kind of neglecting.
Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Yeah, but I guess moving on a little bit, Julie. I'm taking it back to you. Sorry, I had
No, you're good.
that's
I
just
feel
been
like-
on my
I feel like
mind.
that-
It's been on my
that-
mind for a
I
minute.
feel like that applies, you know? Like,
Yeah,
you
right?
shouldn't really judge people for what they're doing, because it's like you don't know what they're going through. Like, especially, again, like, if somebody is going through something personally and mentally, and, like, having that one day off is just them to finally relax, I feel like you shouldn't judge them for, like, not wanting to hang out or anything,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
Because
you
it's
never
like,
know. Some people have like stuff going on.
oh, yeah.
You know, so
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like that applies where it's like not everyone is living the same life,
Yeah.
or like is having the same experience as you, you
Yeah.
know? And I feel like this is just to, like, I guess end it a little bit, is just to say that, you know, like, it's okay, and like take a day off, you know?
Yeah.
It's nice to take a day off from people sometimes. So it's okay.
Yeah, 'cause,
Everything
like,
will be cool.
fucking. Is that the end? Do we end the
Wow.
episode? No, but
Well,
yeah, because I mean, even when I was going through it, I remember one thing that helped me was like going hiking, and I'm like, I guarantee you, somebody who's like fucking hates like cardio would be like, what? Like,
Me.
I-
Me again.
That would make me feel
again.
worse.
Me again.
Do you have another topic, Julie?
Yeah, the other one is a little bit different from this. So it's just should you be able to take kids to concerts or raves? And the reason I ask
What
is
an
because a
interesting
lot of
switch up.
people, I know, a lot of people on Twitter always be like, I remember the one time, I think, and I know this is a bad example, but the one time was for Astro World, and I guess there was a baby there that they had, I think, and everyone was like partying with the kid. Like
Yeah.
the parent was there, and he had his kid over his shoulder, and they were like partying or whatever. And then people were like, "Why the fuck would you take a baby to like a concert or something like that?"
How old
And
was this
then-
baby?
Like a
I don't
baby
know.
baby?
Yeah, like what kind of baby?
It was a small child, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you how. Maybe
okay.
1 year old, maybe.
Really, so really young.
And there was another video that I had seen, which was now a rave, and they had a baby, but they had like their stroller too. And then in the video, though, the video where they actually quote tweeted like, "Why the fuck are you bringing your baby? Where's the babysitter at?" or something like that. In the video, it was actually the guy proposing to his girlfriend, and the mom had the baby on her back, like with like the little backpack thing. The baby was chill, and there's other videos where they show the baby and she's wearing the headphones. But in that specific video that I'm talking about, the guy one of their songs was playing, and he ended up proposing to her. And like you can see the baby there, and then somebody quote tweeted the moment of the proposal, like, "Why the fuck do you have your baby at a concert? Like, where's the babysitter at?" And I just thought, like, why is it that like people find it an issue to take kids? I guess.
Okay.
Um,
Where do you stand first? Because let me hear because you've gone to raves and concerts that I've
Yeah.
never been there. I have obviously my own take.
Yeah.
Let me hear what you
I
have
feel
to say.
like I don't think they're that bad. Like I get with the whole hearing thing because they are very loud spaces, but I feel like if you want to take your kid, because I feel like a lot of parents and families go to like games and like sports games, and I feel like those are also loud enough of like the music that they play, just the crowd is really loud too. And I feel like the atmospheres are not so different, or well, kind of a little bit, but not really. And I feel like it's okay to take your kids, you know, if especially like sometimes if you're listening to music. So say for example, I'm listening to someone specific, and then my kid's listening to them, and then they get into them, and they're like, "Oh, I like them," and then you take them to go see a live show. I mean, they won't remember, but like it's still like I feel like it's generally like okay for them to kind of go, like as long as you're always aware of them and have them there beside you, like it's fine, you know. I don't know. I think
If the baby is having fun, right? If the baby seems to be having fun.
Yeah.
No, I mean, disclaimer,
Mm-hmm.
I love kids, but I fucking hate when they bring kids to like movie theaters and shit,
Yeah.
which is what I can accommodate.
Well,
to.
yeah. I mean, for like movie theaters, I feel like that's different because it's like
Oh,
it's
you're
supposed to be a quiet space.
Yeah.
But like concerts are meant to be
True,
loud, like
true,
you know,
true.
like
I don't know.
or like on airplanes. Like I feel like
I feel like, but airplanes, it's like, what, the baby's not gonna travel? Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna ship them by train, I guess. Like,
show my train.
like, I don't know. I guess it's like,
Because what people say, I guess, is the fact that like people are drinking and doing.
I guess I can
drugs
see
and,
the
like,
safety
all that
thing,
stuff.
right?
Right.
I guess I
yeah.
can see it's like a safety thing.
Mhm.
People do
But
drugs anywhere.
Right.
People do drugs at the movie theater too.
I don't know. I feel like I guess the volume of it is like
Yeah.
everybody's on drugs there.
Mhm.
I don't know. I just think if you're gonna take your kids, you can't be like expect the place to be kid friendly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to kind
Yeah.
of roll with the punches. It reminds me of like when I see those videos of kids at like skate parks. I get it, like, you know, like a kid wants to go to a skate park, but I feel like you also have to be aware that there's also like people who are actually like skating, because you know
Yeah.
you see those kids that get run over and shit, and then the mom gets all
Yeah.
mad and stuff. It's like, well, I mean, like,
You brought him here.
Yeah.
you brought him here, and it's like, I doubt that kid was gonna jump off that ramp, you know. So maybe, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I
Yeah.
feel like you can't really expect it.
Mhm.
There's also a lot of things where it's like you said, they're very revealing and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, it reminds me of those things of like those videos of like people at beaches where the moms will be like, "My kid's here. Why don't you put on something more decent?" You know, like stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like if you're gonna like you know, like you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah,
take your
yeah,
kid
yeah.
to like a non-kid friendly place
Mhm.
and be like, why is it not kid friendly?
But it's like, but the issue isn't coming from the parents. It's coming from like other
Everybody
people.
else
You know,
being like,
they're
"Don't bring your
Yeah,
kids."
don't.
Mind your fucking business. That's my. I don't know.
Mind your fucking business.
I don't know.
Exactly.
Did ass and titties traumatize you as a kid?
No,
The silence.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I did. I don't know. I remember the only time I ever remember being like interesting was Transformers. I remember going to see Transformers, and Megan Fox. They like obviously make her like very like sexual and stuff.
Mhm.
I remember as a kid being like interesting. Like I didn't know how to react to it. I was just like, well, so where's Bumblebee? You know, but
like something inside of me is like changing.
yeah. So I don't know. I don't know.
Interesting.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Is there like psychological effects?
Yeah. Well, because
Like if you take a kid there,
Mhm.
is he gonna get traumatized? Because I feel like that can be an overstimulating place for even adults.
Yeah.
And to have be a
Yeah.
kid and go from like, you know, kindergarten to like rave,
to Blue's Clues to fucking
Yeah.
rave.
you know,
People on E,
Yeah.
people tweaking out and stuff, fainting,
Mm.
being like, oh my god,
sweaty, muscular people everywhere.
Yeah.
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 I asked if ass and titties traumatize you because I'm like that part where they're like, whether it's the beach or the raves of like,
Mhm.
oh, like there's so many people here revealing. Like, I feel like I watched a lot of things that weren't for my age when I was
Mhm.
younger because I had an older brother who was a lot older than me,
Yeah.
so that's how I had access to
it
it.
was the intersection.
Yeah. And I felt like I'm fine, right? Right, guys? Right, everyone listening?
I don't know.
Like, I'm
I feel
fine.
like I don't know. I feel like for me the negatives kind of outweigh the positives. You know,
Mhm.
I feel like I think of the Travis Scott thing. Like, come on, like, come on, you can have a kid in the middle of that crowd.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
he's gonna get squished and he's
Yeah,
gonna cry and
for
feel
sure.
sad. You know, I mean, if the kid really has fun, like, and it's like
Yeah.
his thing, because I'll admit there are kids who are like super like that, who are
Yeah.
like can handle anything. If that's your kid, then by all means, you know.
Yeah.
But I feel like, generally speaking, no,
Yeah.
you know.
If you're the ravers telling those people not to bring their kids, I'd be like, bro, I mean, they made their decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't- Their,
They knew the
their
risks.
life, their choice, bro.
They
And,
knew the risks
yeah.
and stuff.
If you have a
so.
problem with it, then bump into them or something. I don't know.
Well,
Bump into
I'm
them.
surprised you even can take kids.
I know, right?
Because
Well-
aren't there shows that are like only 18 plus?
Well, there's some shows that are like are all ages, like all
Yeah,
ages can go, and then there's others that are like they're like 18 plus or 21 plus. But I think a lot of places are kind of like they're like all
Don't bring your kids.
all ages
Oh.
can go. You know,
Interesting. I mean, the way you talk about it, you say it's like a friendly safe haven. So maybe.
I mean, I feel like I mean, I've seen like I don't think I've ever seen kids like when I go, but I just see like videos of people like taking them. And I'm kind of like, oh, okay. But I'm kind of like, I feel like as a parent, you're already well aware of like the risks that are there, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like the kid may or may not be aware of what's going on. Like if they see a drink in their hand, they're probably like, oh, it's juice or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
But because I was like, to go back to your, like, if I ever got traumatized with those things, I never feel like I did. Like, you know?
I don't know.
Um, But I feel like maybe it's
Yeah.
different because you guys are guys and I'm a girl and like I don't really
Think about that
think
stuff?
about it. Yeah, but I feel like I don't
Yeah,
know.
you guys
I-
don't. You guys really don't. I had a friend who told me that she didn't know that boys had penises until she was, I think, in 8th grade, like a year before she went to high school. That they were at a museum,
Yeah.
and the one of the statues was one of those ones where it's like
Yeah.
naked and they have like their genitalia out.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, why does he have that? And and all the teachers was like, have what? That thing like in his legs. Like, why does he have that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's wrong with him? And then that's where she had the talk. And she's like, I had no idea that boys had penises. So girls really don't be paying attention, bro.
I feel like also like I grew up with brothers and I feel like I wasn't like I feel like I knew our different anatomies, but I didn't think anything was like weird about it. You know? Like I grew up like mom used to bathe us all the time. So I was kinda like, oh okay. Like we're kids, you know. We're getting bathed together. I know our bodies, how they look like. I think my mom just had a good way of explaining everything to me, where she was like, we're different, you know. I'm a girl.
Yeah.
He's a boy. You know, and I think
Okay.
I think she like, I don't know, I think she at least with me, I feel like she did a really good job of explaining everything and how different we were. That I growing up, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like,
yeah, mom came through. She
Yeah.
gave me the talk. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember vividly.
That
Traumatized me.
If we're talking about the sex talk, it's funny because I remember, I think they were talking about it on, because they used to watch like Univision and all that. So there was a commercial that was talking about like, you should talk to your kids about like sex and like what it is, because it's good that it comes from you and blah blah blah. And I remember I was watching it and I was like, Mom's never talked about it, but I already know about it from school. And then we were like looking at the TV, and then she looks back at me and she's like, well, she's like, I'll just tell you now. And I was like, okay. And she like explained it to me or whatever. And I was kind of like, okay. I was like, I kind of knew because in school they kind of were already teaching us like sex ed and shit. So I was kind of like, okay. And she's like, yeah. And then blah, blah, blah. The one that really, I guess, kind of traumatized me is when she talked about periods. Because I always thought periods meant you were pregnant. So when I would go to my physicals, they would be like, oh, have you gotten your period? And I would think about it of like, they're asking me if I've been pregnant before. I'd be like, no. And so then when I was getting to the age of like 15, I remember Mom was there and they had told me about like periods. And then I was like, they asked me again, and I still was like, I don't know what the fuck that is. So like, I'm gonna say no. And so I was just like, no. And she's like, okay. And then Mom looked at me and she's like, I'll talk to you about it later. And I was like, what? And then I remember I think we were at the mall. I think later that day you were there, but I think she told you like, oh, I'm gonna talk to Julie about something.
Scram.
Yeah. And so then she like she like told me about it, and she's like, oh, like your period is like you bleed or something like that. And I remember I was like, what? I'm gonna bleed? She was just like, yeah, it just only happens like for a couple of days, like, but eventually like it goes away.
You were like,
and then I think like I remember I had like my quinceañera, and then a couple of weeks later I got my period, and I remember I wanted to cry so bad because I was like, I saw myself bleeding and I was like, what's going on?
do you feel like it's traumatizing for most girls?
I feel like it could. I mean, I feel like it could be just because like you're bleeding, you know, like,
and it hurts,
and I don't know. I feel like the first part is for sure the blood, because like I feel like it's just a lot of blood that you're just like, fuck, like I'm losing blood. Like that's like, how is that normal? You know,
especially if you don't know what periods are.
Yeah,
I assume you're.
I remember for a long time I had no idea what periods were, like at all. Like I had never heard about periods in my life. And so when Mom finally told me about them, I was like, what?
We're like, when was this updated?
Yeah. I was just like, what?
Was this new?
Yeah.
You know, it's funny too, because I remember I knew a girl who said she got hers at 12.
Yeah. Some people get them like at like 10 or 11.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people get pregnant really young, so.
Yeah.
I assume so. Yeah. That's trippy, bro. But back to the raves. Babies, you see it all comes back around,
it all
bro.
comes back together.
We do such a good job of doing that. We always do that.
Yeah.
We always somehow find our way back.
No, but yeah. So is it wrong? Is it not wrong? To each their own?
Final take, Brandon?
I guess to each their own.
Mind your business. Mind your business.
I guess so.
Mind your business. Don't tell the people how to live.
It's like Brandon said, mind your fucking business. Your fucking business, bro.
I do mind my business.
So yeah, just mind your business. You don't like babies? Go to a different part of the rave.
That is true.
There's the baby section.
No, the one that does get me sometimes is when babies at church and babies at the movie theaters.
Yeah, mainly at the movie theaters. Because I'm like, oh, come on. Especially if it's like an adult movie.
Yeah, like an adult serious movie. It's like, why'd you bring your kid, bro? Like, yeah.
Oh, like, come on.
Yeah. You know what I personally hate? I hate people who bring like animals into like stores. Like
like dogs and stuff?
Yeah.
And now they put the fake thing that it's like
I think that's like annoying. because like it's rare that it's ever like an actual service animal. You just be like, oh, it's a certain, it's like a dog, it's like a bulldog or something. It's like, yeah, bro, I'm sure that's your seeing eye dog.
It's a poodle.
Yeah, I don't know, because they're always
poodle.
like going crazy. They're never like chilling. They're always like, and I'm like, man, why'd you bring your dog in here? I don't know.
I guess because now, I mean, I feel like I remember when it was like first getting like heat of like people bringing their dogs to the stores, but now I think it's because a lot of people generally like treat their dogs as or their pets as kids.
I guess I should take my own advice, right? Mind my fucking business.
Mind your business.
But you know what's funny? You know, I wouldn't doubt if those like service animals are real. Not in the sense of like that they're actually seeing eye dogs. But you know, you can make you can make your dog like a service animal really easily. Your cat too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing it a while ago that's like a problem, that it messes with like actual service animals.
Well, yeah,
it for sure probably does.
Because like I think it's like if you have a service animal and then someone else brings their dog in and it's like untrained and stuff and it harasses your service animal, it's like makes it a hard time, you know. But
well, yeah, because a lot of them aren't like properly trained. Like especially if they see a different dog, like the service dog sees the other dog and the other dog's like barking at it. It's like the service dog isn't gonna do anything because it's properly trained not to do anything. But the other one is like distracting him. Yeah. So I can see like the issue with it, and I feel like that one is an issue because it's like there are people who genuinely need like those types of dogs. Yeah. I feel like people are kind of taking it like a little bit of advantage of that, and I think that's very selfish. Yeah. So I feel like with that, I don't know. I think that is an issue.
Well, because in this case, you're not minding your own business because the business is
becoming my business.
Yeah.
That was all up on me. Yeah. I guess so. It's a good point.
I don't know. I feel like that's.
It's not like the babies at the raves are like gonna come up on you. Yeah. You know?
I do think that's always interesting though, when someone has like an out of control kid. That's always that's always awkward.
I remember I was at Buffalo Wild Wings once, and there was like a kid who kept climbing up on the back part. Were you there?
Yeah.
Were you there? And they kept climbing up, and I'm like, ugh, like,
bro, get your kid.
Yeah. It's so weird because like at least for me, because I really like kids, I don't want to be like, hey, get the fuck off, bro. And I also don't want to cause a scene. Like, I'm just trying to eat my wings, you know? Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not going to like cuss out the parent, but I'm like, come on, bro. Like, that's your kid. Like you're so like, you're selfish. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
I just, that one does annoy me because it's like you're also in a public space, you know? And it's like your kid is all up in other people's space. Especially for that was like, the kid was in our booth. Like it was in booths, you know, and it was like they were right next to them, and it was kind of like, bro, like say something to your kid. Like he's jumping on like the seat, and like we're over here trying to eat. Like I feel like those are like personal spaces where it's just like this isn't your house.
Yeah, bro. Like people have pets that are more well behaved than their kids. Yeah, like, come on now.
That's funny.
But moving on, Julie, you got something else to say?
No, that's it.
Brandon,
what you got?
Yeah. So I guess I wanted to talk about, I don't know if you guys saw, I don't know specifically when it became like, when it came out, I guess, but I think Florida approved PragerU to be used in schools. It's not that they approved it to be like the curriculum, but if they wanted to use those videos as a part of like to help them with the curriculum, it's like approved to do that. And I think the one that I think was the biggest one that a lot of people on TikTok were pretty upset about, or at least on the internet that I've seen, was the
PragerU. What is PragerU?
It's like a media company, right? It's conservative, and that's not even like my opinion. That's what they promote themselves as. It's like it's like a conservative like media platform and stuff like that. And they put out educational videos for to represent their beliefs and stuff like that. But I think the one that was the biggest, there's a few, but the one that I thought was a little weird was the one about Christopher Columbus. Have you guys seen that one?
No.
I saw a snippet of it, and I was like, what?
Well, I watched like pieces of it. So essentially, you know how the premise is like Mr. Peabody and Sherman. It's like these two kids, they go back in time to like meet these historical figures and learn. So I think the issue in that episode was like whether to call it Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. So they go back to talk to Christopher Columbus, and he essentially kind of like, he defends himself, I guess. He talks, one of the things he says is like, you shouldn't judge people for like what they believed was okay at the time. He also says slavery is better than being killed. He also says like And a lot of the parts that I visited that where I took slaves, there were cannibals and like there were sacrifices and stuff like that. And it's pretty like shocking. I thought it was pretty alarming.
That's racist, bro.
It is, yeah.
That's racist. Because that's like saying that the natives were savages, which isn't true. That's literally like hundreds of years of propaganda saying that.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking insane, bro. That's like completely insane. Because, like, no, you know what? Continue.
Well, I mean, no, you can go because I wanted your opinion on it because obviously it's like.
So they're showing that in schools? Are you saying?
It's approved to be shown in schools. So it's not like they're like, okay, this is the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
From my understanding, if like a teacher wants to show it as part of their curriculum, they get the okay. I think it's kind of like, you know how when we were in school,
but they can use it. But they can use it however they want.
They can use it for the most part to be like, oh, this is if they're learning about
this is wrong.
Well, no, like let's say if they're learning about like Columbus and like like that kind of, if they're in that section, they can turn that on and be like, oh, this is like, it's like when we would watch Schoolhouse Rock or shit like that. You know, it's the same premise type thing. They do a couple. I saw another one that was on Frederick Douglass and then Booker T. Washington, where they talk about how like you shouldn't. I forgot which one it was, but they say like, oh, so did you mind slavery? And he was like, of course I minded slavery, but you can't judge people like, because I think one of the characters says something like, oh, I'm sorry that happened, and he says like, you should never be sorry. Like you're not responsible for what your ancestors did. You have no like connection to that. Obviously, because I think that's weird. Because I think the problem in that one was that they were tackling was them taking down like statues and stuff like that. So they go to meet him. But it's a lot of stuff like that where they kind of like recontextualize history to put it lightly.
Damn.
Isn't that ironic? Because didn't they have a whole bitch fit about how like, oh, you can't teach kids like so young about like these complicated topics because like they're not ready. You know, leave the kids alone. And yet they're trying to justify slavery and they're trying to justify racism. Because I think the R word gets thrown around a lot. Like racism gets thrown around a lot, or being racist. But I feel like this genuinely is racist. And it's because it's teaching through like the white perspective that there's people who are less human than you. About that whole thing about how like, oh, you know, slavery, like it was, they're literally, imagine if you're a black kid going there. You're basically learning that, oh, you know, the white people are superior to you. Like that's such like a fucked up way of teaching little kids because they grow up with the white perspective and it perpetuates the idea that white is right. Yeah, and that's a racist idea. So
because I think in one of them they talk about like, oh, like was slavery okay? And like the character obviously goes, no, it's not okay, but the founding fathers had to tolerate it to create something more beautiful, which is the United States of America. And it's like shit, like, because I don't know. I just think that I think that one's shocking, but I also think the Christopher Columbus one was pretty shocking because it's like he says, like Christopher Columbus, the character says like there was slavery in the places that I went. Like slavery has existed for a long time, and he says being a slave is better than dying, right? And it's I don't know. It's weird that they're like in essence justifying slavery. Yeah. Because I don't know. I think that's like. Obviously, as an adult and like having gone to school and stuff like that and knowing about that, it's one thing and it's already shocking. But I think for that to be your original, like how you get introduced to it, I think it's a little, it's insane to me.
It's like wrong teachings.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just recontextual. I just always think recontextualizing history and stuff like that is always pretty alarming. Damaging. Not just damaging, scary to me at least. Because if you look at historical context, right, when that kind of stuff happens, it rarely ever leads to anything good. I think somebody also brought up that it's also a little concerning because I think in Florida they also banned African American studies at the AP level. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's to me that's always like an alarming event when they're kind of like, nah, that's not what happened. Yeah. But yeah.
It's just, I think it's crazy because this is all in Florida, right? I just think it's crazy what's going on there because I know he's the governor, right?
Yeah, they want him to run for president, yeah.
He's changing, like, so many things. Like, he's already changed, like, so many programs for the state or, like, especially for schools that it's just, like, I just think it's crazy that, like, that's happening, you know, and kind of in this time, you know? Like, I don't know. I think it just really is shocking me that I don't know what to say. Where I'm like, bro, is this for real
You're
happening?
speechless.
Yeah, it to me, it's just like, is this really happening to like people, you know, out over there? Because it's like, you know, there's also like different cultures there too, you know, and that are being affected. And I'm kind of like, bro, that's crazy that's like being taught, especially now to like kids and stuff.
Yeah, I
You know?
agree. I think that for me is what's also so shocking, is because like I know that these people who like are in charge of this present it as like, no, like this is how history is. Like, don't listen to like the woke culture or all that bullshit.
Yeah.
I guess for me, that's why it's always so shocking, because it's like, obviously these people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, it's strategic. Obviously they don't, like, you know, and to me, that's always like, it's a little scary, honestly, how strategic it is to be like, I don't want these people to know about like the real history, because then that leads to like down the line, I'm out of power and we're out of say. I don't know. That's scary to me to like to be able to like witness it and comprehend it. And you're kind of like, well, it's happening. Like, you know, kids are going to like grow up with that. And like, it's not really.
Well, especially because kids can like, I guess, be a little easily influenced.
Yeah.
And it's like, if they're being taught this in school where they think that like, especially they're trusting enough that their teacher is teaching them the right ways, I guess. And it's kind of like, bro, like
they're going to grow up and
they're
believe very strongly on those things.
Because I mean, we talk about that. I mean, it's different. I mean, it's for sure different. Like I think that's something I always kind of think about a lot for me personally, is what I learned in Catholic school. Like I always say, I think we kind of got lucky with our Catholic school. I think it wasn't as extreme as a lot of other Christian Catholic schools, but I still carry a lot of what I learned. You know, a lot of in my day to day, I feel like, oh, I think that's the Catholic in me, kind of trying to do that, or thinking that way. You know, so I understand that those types of things are really hard to break.
Yeah.
But when it's something like, in my opinion, that's as serious as this, you can only imagine how hard that's going to be to break, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, because the reason, like I keep saying with what's going on with Florida, because I remember when there was a bill that had passed, and I'll just read it because I was trying to look for it. And it says, a new bill passed by Florida House can ban all Black fraternities and sororities on public college campuses due to their association with diversity, inclusion, and critical race theory. Because I know something had happened that, like, there was a bill that he had passed about, like, banning people. And I remember hearing about it, and I was like, because, like, I'm in a sorority, right? And, like, hearing about that, because it's really affecting a lot of schools of, like, especially like recruiting and all that stuff, especially because they're trying to ban like the whole thing about critical race theory. And it's kind of like, bro, like, I just think it's crazy because it's like they're completely trying to like erase everything that's like is like true, you know, like it's just like things that we need to learn to educate ourselves about, like kind of what was wrong that we have been learning. And it's like they're trying to teach, like, no, it wasn't wrong. Like, you know how, like, whatever Christopher Columbus said, like, no, this is what's right. Or, like, this is what it was really intended or whatever. And I don't know. I think it just really mind blows me a lot of, like, that's happening, you know?
No, yeah. Like, to echo what Steve said, I really agree. Like, it's just racist. Like, it's shocking how it's just racist. So openly racist. Yeah. And I go back to thinking about that quote of, like, if you don't know your history, if like a community that doesn't know its history, it can't assess where it's at now. Yeah. It can't assess how to move forward. It can't assess how to fix the problems that exist in its community. Yeah. So I always think it's like, man, like what, like they're just doing it openly and getting away with it, you know? So.
Yeah. Well, it's because I'm trying to wrap my mind around the thought process, right? Because it's so easy to be, these guys are just racist and they're perpetuating racist stereotypes, but the way that the government works, it's never point blank. Yeah. So I see it as Rob DeSantis. That's his name, right? Governor of Florida.
I think so, yeah.
He's doing these things because he feels as though he's keeping what conservatives believe in is the American way. Yeah. The American way is, for alternative reasons, it's basically just white history. Mm-hmm. So it's getting rid of all the perspectives that weren't white perspectives. Yeah. That's how you see it from Christopher Columbus. That's how you see the founding fathers say a bunch of shit that justifies atrocities. Yeah. It's because that's the American way. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm wrapping my mind around how Rob DeSantis, like most people who are racist, it comes from uneducation. Yeah. It comes from them having a lack of education of what really happened in history. And I feel like him continuing to push laws and policies that are going to tell kids that we should dehumanize certain groups from this country, I feel like it's just going to create more people like him.
Yeah.
And that's where I see the danger.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd like, it's one thing to just be openly racist and obviously see those initial dangers, but it's another thing to almost plant seeds for the future.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
all the like millions of people are gonna grow up to believe like, bro, slavery, what do you mean? We needed that for this beautiful country. Like, oh, like genocide of the Native Americans, well, survival of the fittest, bro.
Or like, I get what you mean. I guess for me it's just more like, obviously they're afraid of the status quo changing, you know. I think that's mostly, it's just fear. Because like I think I see it the most with a lot of, I think the LGBT community really like, and their struggles really exemplifies it, about how they're really trying to like just live their freedoms, but it's very against the status quo. So they like do stuff. But I think what you're saying resonates, because it's like, it's almost like they're trying to stamp it out before it even starts. You know, which is, it's a shame. It's a shame. But
scary.
It is scary. I feel like I feel like the way you're talking about it, I'm just like, it's just really scary, because it's like, again, like I feel like kids are very easily influenced, and I feel like a lot of people who kind of have that mindset grew around an environment that had that mindset, which is why like when they're older, it's hard for them to get out of that mindset, because it's years of them growing up with like people who were very conservative, who were had these conservative like mindsets, and like to finally go to places or like be in areas where like it's like, bro, like a lot of what you're saying is a little racist, you know, like to kind of hear that, they're kind of like, no, because that's what I grew up hearing, you know.
Well, yeah, because I think I guess it's also like what you said, right? A lot of like racism and anti-Semitic, all the prejudices, and that it comes from uneducation. Like you just don't know any better. I mean, I'm not excusing it, but like it comes from lack of education. But to see that like now even education is kind of like, you know, I'm not saying education was ever perfect. It definitely had its flaws, and it didn't do an amazing job at teaching other than white perspectives. But to see that it like, I don't know how to explain. Yeah, it seems a little more like
weaponized as a tool.
Yeah, it's to
influence the youth.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it makes me mad. It makes me scared too, because it's like they're teaching this in like one specific area, you know, and like people. I guess you saying that the guy wants to run for president is also like, bro, what the fuck?
Yeah, because conservatives, contrary to popular belief, conservatives don't want to be racist. They think racism is bad, but that's what gets me about this, is that it's not being said that it's racist. It's being disguised as this is the American way, or this is the conservative way.
Or this is like, I guess, for me the disguise is that it's like, if it's like, oh, this is the objective, the facts, it's not racist, there's no like, you know, it's presented that way. But if you watch it and if you're educated, you're like, what do you mean? Like this is loaded. Like this is
super racist.
It's super loaded, super biased. It's very comprehensive whatsoever. You
super
know?
Subjective.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But I mean, he clearly hasn't made the best decisions. I mean, when he passed the immigration bill, all those people that lost jobs. I mean, Florida.
So is that real that a lot of people left? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like the first one was the one about like the colleges, because I remember I kept getting a lot of alerts from like my sorority about it, because they were saying that it could like affect a lot of us, because we also have a lot of like chapters in Florida, so they were like they get affected. And a lot of it is also because just within our history, like the reason there was like black fraternities was because there was a lot of white fraternities, and they didn't allow people, you know, besides white people to join them. So then that's when kind of black fraternities kind of got created. And then from there, they kind of helped create like sororities. and then because of them, there's a lot of them who help also bring in like the Latino sororities and fraternities. So it's kind of like it all stems from that, from like them kind of starting their own thing. And that's why, like, for me, I was like, man, like this is really fucked up. Like, cause I was living in that. And then to hear, especially like the whole immigration thing, eventually that he did that too. And like seeing that people left, it was kind of like, bro, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
And then now hearing about this, where it's just like, bro, like,
Yeah.
what is going on?
But I mean, I bring that up because that had an initial very damaging backlash. And I bring it up to say that I think that objectively that form of teaching is going to fail. I just don't see it succeeding. I don't see everybody getting into it and adopting that. And I guess it is just my way of saying that action is required, but I don't think that's going to succeed. I think objectively it's going to fail. And all those teachings and stuff, it's just going to be an unfortunate blemish in just whatever Florida's history has already been. You know?
Yeah, I hope so. For sure, I hope so.
I think so. I mean, he's made bad decisions before.
No, yeah, I guess for me it's like, because you can tell like the cartoon is made for like kids.
Yeah,
It's not for like 8th graders. It's for like children. But yeah, I agree. I hope it just crashes and burns. But it's interesting, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's
to know that
important to be
happening.
aware.
Yeah. I think people should be aware of
Yeah.
that.
For
Because
sure.
then if you're not aware, that's what people are like, what do you mean racism doesn't even exist anymore? It's
Yeah.
like, it very clearly does.
Yeah.
And it's very clearly still in our own government too.
Yeah.
But as long as you're aware, you're already doing one part. So that's
True.
just to say that, everything's cool.
Before we wrap up the episode, I want to say shout out to our patrons, Daniel Villanueva, Yoel, Catfriend, and Jada Chicano. Your patronage is greatly appreciated.
I love you. All of you.
So thank you so much for supporting. If you'd like to join our Patreon and get a hand on the wall or even just a shout out, our link is always in the bio. But until then, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Good episode.